All right, everybody. It's me again. Hopefully you guys saw the last one. I'm running a little bit behind, so it's one of those typical days you guys already know. And again, we're bringing another amazing guest on, Bradley. I've had the chance to talk with him, and this man is, I mean, in so many words, he's just truly amazing. And without further ado, I'm going to bring him on. If you guys are tuning in, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, leave us a comment, and share it with somebody that you think that can benefit from being on, listen to this show. And as always, thank you guys for letting us bring these amazing stories to you. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up my guest, Bradley.
Hey.
Thank you for your patience, brother.
No, it's all good.
But yeah, thank you for being on the show today. And man, we talked a little bit before, and your journey, your message, and everything that you do, man, is so inspiring. So I want to say first and foremost, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me
and sharing this amazing story with us, man. So I always like to start off. Tell the people where you're from.
I'm from the Dallas, Texas area, kind of like in the burbs west of Dallas, a place called Argyle, Lantana, near Denton.
Mm-hmm. And we talked briefly when we were talking. It was such an amazing conversation. And you are the grandfather. You're taking care of your 6 grandkids.
Well, actually, I have 5 grands. One is an angel right now. I'm taking care of 2 of them. They were 6 and 2 when they came to live with us. Yeah. So that's where the 6 came from.
See, I knew it was something. See, that's why you're here to set me straight, man.
Oh, it's all good.
Straight,
It's all good.
So let's dive into your story, brother.
I guess to make a long story not quite as long, my grief journey started with the tragic death of my granddaughter back in 2016. She was 4 years old. She passed away in an accident at her school, and we went there, in a different state to go care for her and my daughter and do all the arrangements and things like that. And and the journey begins, right? My grief journey actually started at my office.
Right.
And that's why I do a lot of work now with, workplace grief and making more compassionate offices, because literally my grief journey started in my office. I got a call that morning from my wife, couldn't really understand what she was saying. And then a second call came through, and it was a principal at my grandchildren's school. And he basically said, is this Mr. Vinson? I said, yeah, it's me. And I'm the principal at your grandchildren's school. And I hate to inform you, but your granddaughter died in an accident this morning, and you need to come now. And that's how it started. We get to Louisiana doing all those different things. And I'm sitting there in the principal's office, and he and a bunch of staff are trying to tell my wife and I what was going on. And then he looks at me and says that Alanna, that was my granddaughter's name, her brother, which was then at 6 years old, at the same school, and their toddler little brother, 2 years old, was at the same school. Mm-hmm. And the principal looks at me and says, your grandson doesn't know his sisters died, and I think it's only right that you tell him. So I had just drove, 5 hours-ish to get there, and devastated. And now I get if you want to call it the opportunity, I realize that I'm now starting my grandson's grief journey.
Right.
Because I'm the one that tells him his sister's not coming home. So that's how that started, and then we kind of move, a little forward from there. And as things go on, I'm in seminary at the time. I'm a seminary student. I had just started that previous December. Mm-hmm. And that pretty much wrecks, turns, whatever you want to call it, my whole ministry outlook now. Because I'm in ministry seminary to look at being a stronger men's ministry leader and couples ministry leader and doing church administration. Never to be a pastor. That was never my intent.
Right.
but just work those ministries. And now that's all changed in an instant. It's like I no longer want to do any of it, let alone stay on the ministry track I'm on. But as I kind of dig myself through the clouds and things of that, and I just started researching, trying to figure out ways to find content on how to grieve as a Christian, how to heal as a Christian, for myself, being a man, being a husband, being a grandparent, and my family. And I just couldn't find the content that would really resonate with me. So I just started researching and digging and creating my own. And roughly the latter part of 2016, I started serving the grieving community in different capacities, which has kind of grown into what it is today. But the journey still continues. We talked about it the other day. We're now privileged to help raise Alanna's brothers. They've been with us now for the last 7 years, and just standing in the gap, helping our daughter. We call it co-parenting, or as grandparents, reparenting. They've been with us full time since then, and and even raising 2 grieving boys, right?
Yeah.
Because even the toddler at the age of 6, he's now 9. His grief is different.
Yeah.
Right. Because as he matures, as his brain changes, and the magical thoughts start to dissipate, because when they're young, they have these magical thoughts, right? Well, I'll just dream about my sister and she'll be back tomorrow. Or I'll just go back to our old house where we used to live at together and she's there. So even grieving through that, as he had to realize, no, she's not coming home. She's not coming back. And just those parts of the journey, right? So just kind of working through all of that, and and then still helping myself and my wife, and as they all go through their own unique grief journeys, because we all lost Alanna, but we all lost a different person, right? She was my granddaughter, not my sister. She was my granddaughter from a man's point of view, not from a woman's point of view. Because one of the things that my wife mentioned to me early on in our journey, she said, the legacy of motherhood is broken. And as a man, I could never phantom that, right?
Right, yeah.
Because my wife, my daughter, my granddaughter, but now she was the only girl. So the legacy of motherhood is broken. That's it, right?
No, I understand that. I understand that in a different way. And just from my own personal experience, when my son passed away, I could take that same terminology and go, my legacy of fatherhood is broken, right? Because my father, my younger brother, and now my son is gone. And he was the only male that I had, and my younger brother should have taken, he was next in line to carry on the bloodline from my father.
Right.
And my son was next in line to carry on the bloodline from me. So now I am the only one. So the legacy of fatherhood is now broken. So I understand it from, like you said, from a male's point of view. Right. So of course we look at those things differently because we process grief differently.
Indeed. And so the trials and things that I've dealt with through my grief, and one thing I had to learn in grief in general is that, in grief, pain is guaranteed.
Oh, yes.
Suffering is optional, and it's usually self-inflicted.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. And so, So it's all these things, right? Because when a child dies, who's responsible? Who should have did what? Why wasn't it's all these things, right? Because we're the adults, we're the protectors.
Right.
But that's suffering that we're putting on ourselves from something we can't control. Right.
Very true.
And then the male point of view, right? Provider, protector. I couldn't, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And even, at a deeper, even spiritual level, right? My wife and I have always been side by side in ministry and doing couples ministry and different things like that. And people call us to pray for their sick loved ones or pray over their marriages and whatever it is, right? We always got those phone calls. but we didn't get the opportunity to pray for our own granddaughter for healing. She's just gone.
Yeah.
Right. And I tell the story when because I kind of go out and do lectures and trainings on grief. And I tell the story that not long after my granddaughter's funeral, I get a phone call from a close friend. And he asked us to pray for his wife because she was ill and the doctors couldn't even figure out what was wrong with her.
Right.
Now, the flesh side of me, in my mind, I was thinking, how dare he? Doesn't he know my granddaughter just died? We just buried my granddaughter.
Right.
But then the spiritual side of me is like, that's put in front of me for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because up until that point, I don't believe I had prayed from the moment that Alanna passed away until that moment.
Right.
And because I couldn't find the words for prayer. I felt all I had was turmoil and heavy grief and anger and all those things,
Yeah.
which it kind of brought me out of that, because just like anybody else, right? If you have whoever you have a real relationship with, you've been mad with before.
Oh yeah. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And so,
especially if you're close to me.
Right. And so in the midst of all that, though, in my grief, I started ignoring the things that I knew were true.
Right.
God can handle that. He can handle my angry whatever. He can handle my sadness. He can handle all that because he's been through all that. He knows all that.
Right.
But in the cloud of grief, when you feel like that's all you have, you cocoon and you hold it. Yep. And so, as you're just kind of working through that process. And so that's kind of been the journey. And, I'm now a fire and police chaplain. I go out and I speak at different places and I do training and grief coaching and things like that. But it's just all these different things, right, that are part of the journey. Right. And it actually creates what you do. It creates who you are.
Like you said, man, you're the grieve coach, right? You know what
I'm
saying? You're the grieve coach, man. And I think that is so commendable. And just speaking from my own perspective here, coming from another man, brother, I commend you, because I tell you, when my son passed away, I did not think I was going to come back. So what you said before, self-inflicted wounds are the worst ones, right? You know what I'm saying? Most of the suffering and stuff that we go through is self-inflicted, and right. Those are true words. And it's something that I had to learn as I went through my grief journey. And I tell you, man, the isolation, the just not wanting to deal with people, things like that, the anger, and I used to think I had this beautiful I knew I had this beautiful relationship with God. And I will tell you, when that happened, it was hard for me to trust him. I was so angry with him. And I was, I wanted so much to be a victim. And like you said, coming from a male's point of view, we're supporters, we're providers. Right. And I was so shameful because I couldn't protect him from his tragic end. And I couldn't provide the things that he needed in order to get better during that transition. So yeah, I was ashamed. I was like, what is people going to think about me? Like, I just lost my kid. And it was me judging myself before anyone else could judge me.
Right.
And it was a fight, not just with the world, but it was more, the biggest fight came within myself, because I lost who I was.
Right. It's crazy you say that. There was it might have been roughly a year, 8 months to a year before Alanna passed away. We had just moved into a new house, Mother's Day week, 2015. Mm-hmm. And Alanna was here for when we moved in. But right before that, in our older house, Alanna came to visit without her brothers. And she was running back and forth through the house, taking selfie pictures with us on our phone. Nice. And one of those pictures is in my phone, and it's a picture of me holding her, and we're both kind of smiling into the camera. And I remember not long after she died, man, and I'm still, going through. Sad was up the mountain from where I was.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember texting that picture back to my wife, and I said, where has this guy gone? I couldn't remember the last time I smiled. Couldn't remember the last time I really felt nothing.
Yeah, man.
And that's hard when you're dealing with that in the midst of everything else. And I had to figure out how to grieve and still live.
Right. Yeah.
Because you still got to go to work, even though you have those I call them micro traumas that don't really just knock you down for days, but it's just a steady beating on you. And your body knows, right? Because from the moment, we left my office and we go see about Alanna, I didn't return to work till after her funeral. My job was very gracious to me. I got more than my 3 days that people typically get. And I come back to the office and I'm pretty much quiet all day. I'm so thankful I had an office with a door on it, because I'd sit in the crevice of the door and hide, because I had, glass walls on one side. And I finally get through my first day of work. I get in my car. And as I'm driving down the parking garage, it gets to the point where I can't see. I'm having anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
The last thing and I realized I had to think back. The last thing my body remembered was me driving down that parking garage, that spiral parking garage, to leave and go to Louisiana to see about my dead granddaughter. And my body remembered. So when I got back in my car, my first day at work, and I started going down that parking garage, all I could think about was heading to Louisiana to see about my dead granddaughter. And so just traumas like that continuously happen. Going to Walmart and Target, never realized it until after my granddaughter died. They put all the little girls' clothes up front. And they're pink and purple. The whole store is pink and purple. Her favorite colors, right? And so you're going through all these things. And that's kind of how I came up with what I call my GRIEVE Method. And that's why I say the GRIEVE Coach. And it's just the things that I would remember on my journey and what helped me get over that particular hump. Like the first thing is, I call it the G, right? Grace for those not grieving. And I think, I'm not sure if everybody goes through this, but you're angry, especially men. We're angry because nobody else is grieving.
Yes.
How dare you be on the freeway with me? My granddaughter's dead. How dare you be out shopping? How dare you be at the grocery store? How dare you be smiling? My granddaughter's dead. And I had to realize the only way that people will be able to understand what I'm going through is to have gone through it. And I don't want anybody to have that understanding. Now, empathy is different, right? But to understand, I think those are two of the most painful words that any griever can tell another griever, is to look that person in the eye and say, I understand.
Yes.
Two very painful, powerful words. And as I was kind of as I'm going through my journey, that's kind of where that method came from, right? And put it like this. So, and all the things that go with grief, right? Because there was an accident at her school and fire and police show up and the whole nine. And, we're sitting that afternoon after I get back from the coroner's office and things like that. And the TV is on. And to see your whole granddaughter's existence summed up in a 2-minute news segment, and then they're going to weather. Yes. Oh, yeah, and then tomorrow's weather. And it's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right? And then everybody wants to know what happened. And it's like, hey, it was an accident. Then people start Googling what happened. And you're going through all of this, right? And it's hard not to be angry, but those people are on the periphery of your life and you didn't know them before your grief event and you won't know them after. So you have to release those people to whoever they are.
Yep. Yes, you
But the
do.
people we really have to have some grace for are those people in our circle, right? And one of the things that I tell other people that's grieving, and like you said before, right? You want to be a griever. I call some people are professional grievers.
Yes.
Woe is me, care for me, love on me, I'm hurting. There's a degree of that, and I'm not going to fault anybody for that. But at a certain level, what is your grief doing for you? What is it doing for you? How are you going to learn how to carry it? Right.
Mm.
And a lot of times, like you said, you wanted to be a victim. A lot of times when I'm talking to other grievers, I push back on that a little bit with this, because I think we all that have been through grief or going through grief can say there's people we thought would be there that are not.
Yep.
There's people that surprised us being there, but we lean into the pain of those we thought would be there that are not, more so than being thankful for those new people that came into our lives.
Mm.
But I challenge grievers with this. You know who really loves you. You know. And some of those people you feel have deserted you in your grief. How about if you think about it a little bit this way? What if some of those people are grieving the person you were before your grief?
Yeah.
And they don't know how to respond to you anymore. Because that was your golfing buddy, your running buddy, your shopping buddy, your go out to movies friend. And now you have no desire for that stuff.
Yes.
And everything somebody asks you to do is no.
Yes.
And at some point, they're going to be like, well, they'll let me know when they're better, because they don't know how to respond to us.
Exactly. Yes.
But we're hurt because they're not here.
Right.
And I've challenged people, man, because I coach people with their grief. I'm not a counselor. I consider myself a coach. It's from your grief event forward. I can't talk about how your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend treated you in high school. I'm not a counselor. I talk about how to move forward. I can't go historical with you, right? But one thing that I tell a lot of grievers that I coach, just for a second, step out of the desire or the need, which can be valid. It's a valid need to be loved on. Take a step out of that and choose to love on somebody that you know loves you, but that could just be grieving you. And I say, make a list of those people, and within the next 3 or 4 days, call one of them and say, hey, man, I miss you. I love you. I know we hadn't been talking since my granddaughter passed away, and I miss you being in my life.
Right.
And I just wanted to let you know that, man. And I just want to be around you. And the thing about it, with us being able to step out of our grief for that little bit of time and love on somebody else in the midst of our grief can help our healing and theirs.
Yes.
And it can propel you in your grief journey a lot further than you think. Just by that simple gesture of, I know you love me, so it's got to be something.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they're hurting because I've been in my cloud of grief. And that's a legitimate cloud. I'm not minimizing the grief.
No.
What I'm saying is that everybody we think that deserted us probably didn't.
Yep.
But it's going to take us, even in the midst of our grief, to lean back into that and say, hey, I'm grieving. You're grieving a different grief because you're grieving that dude I used to be. I'm not that golfing buddy no more.
Right.
But you're a dear friend, and how can we move forward? So because I need you on this journey.
Right.
Now, you know who those people are. I think at a gut level, we know who those people are. Now, some folks we know, a little mist in our lives ain't got to be a storm. A little mist, they gone. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
But we know well, I think because they hurt more. You know what I mean? Because it
This is very
hurts
true.
more.
Yeah.
It's 2 or 3 folks that it hurts really bad that they haven't called me. It hurts really bad.
I
Right.
agree with that totally, right? What you just said right there. Because when I was going through the process after losing my son, there were so many people that left, right? And when you're in the beginning stages, you don't really understand why they leave it. And I had a really good friend of mine, actually a couple of good friends, that called and say, "Hey, are you okay right now?" And one of my really good friends just had a kid. He had a kid a week after. As a matter of fact, the Friday after my son passed away, he had his little girl. And so he didn't, he was like, "Oh man, and then he said, "You know what? No, I'm still going to come around you because I want to make sure that you're okay." Right. And I had another buddy of mine, his son and my son were best of friends. And so everything, like you said, everything had changed. And he still called me up. I remember that 2 weeks after everything, after the tribute and everything, we was at work because I ended up going back to work. He goes, "What do you want to do this weekend?" I said, "I want to go see this movie." And at that time it was the Will Smith movie, Collateral Beauty.
Yeah, man.
And that was a deep movie, man. And and I was telling someone, I was telling him, I was like, "Dude, I don't know how to do this." And I don't know how to do this. Like, there's a part of me that's just empty, and there's a part of me that wants to rip the world apart. And this movie, he is going through the process after losing his daughter.
Yeah.
I said, "You know what? Since I don't have anyone to teach me, I'm going to go watch this movie." And I did. We went there and we watched it. And I remember he was still with me, right? He was still with me. And after that, he was like, "Man, this is like, no matter what, I'm still here with you, right? I'm still here with you."
Man, that movie is probably the closest representation of grief that I have seen.
Oh my God. Oh my God, man.
And it's odd that it's a bunch of Will Smith movies that do that, right? There's another
one
called 7 Pounds. His movie called 7 Pounds
was another one. Yeah, I remember that one.
And we were in the deep throes of grief. And I remember the commercial came out. And couldn't watch it. Says too soon. Can't do it.
I had to.
And then it swung back around where it was on a cable station or Netflix or whatever it was. And I said, we're gonna watch it. And I'm sitting there, and it's literally like somebody was following me around.
Right. Yeah.
And made a movie out of it.
Yeah.
Now come to find out, Will Smith's dad had died during the production of that movie.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And not that I wish it on anybody.
No.
But I doubt his role would have been as powerful had he not had that loss. He lost his father during the filming of that movie.
Right. So his emotion was raw and authentic, because not only is he playing the role of a grieving father, just lost a daughter. And trust me, anybody who's ever lost a kid, I don't wish that sort of pain on no one. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't. And I'm talking from experience, as a male, it doesn't go anywhere at all. But to have him play the role of that and have his father, of course, I'm right there with you, right? I don't think the role would have been as powerful, because that role right there, his emotions was so, I felt like you. His emotions was so genuine that it felt like somebody was walking around filming me and putting it out there for display, right?
And then even I don't want to give the movie away, because it's a powerful movie that needs to be experienced,
right?
Without people, but it's a powerful movie, man. And the whole movie in its totality is powerful.
It was
right.
deep.
And And that's the thing, because it's like, yeah, I mean, but
we ain't gonna give it away.
Yeah, but having grace for people like that is a key. And it's, and I talk about the GRIEVE method and stuff like that. It's not the 5 stages of grief.
No,
because frankly, I don't believe in that. That was actually written for those that were terminally ill.
Yes, we talked
not
about
for people
that
grieving,
well.
right? And so I don't believe in that. But my model is not a 5 stages thing. It's more so way markers on the journey that I just happen to spell out a word with, but other stuff, you can do the I first. But the R is what I call relinquish control. And that's that suffering, right? It's the idea, the ifs, the buts, I coulda, shoulda, woulda.
I love that.
When you're able to release control, perceived control, because we don't control nothing.
Exactly.
But when you're able to release that, it's freeing. And I tell people the story. And when you first hear it, sometimes it's jolting to people. It's like, wow. Then I say, but when it came to me, it was soothing. But let me tell you, okay, so we're on the drive back home. We've made arrangements for Alanna's funeral, and we've decided to bring her back to Texas, where she was born and where her dad's side of the family lives, to have her funeral. And so we're driving back home, and audibly, like in the car with me, God is speaking to me. And he says, if I asked you, when was the best time to have Alanna back with me, what would you say? And I mean, it felt like he was in the car. And I'm surprised my wife and my mom didn't hear it. It was that audible. And I'm thinking in my mind, and I'm like, I don't know. Then God says, if I asked you when was the best time to have Alanna back with me, would you say 50, 100? How about after you died? And I'm thinking, yes, that would be best.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be here to suffer like this.
Right.
Then God says, if I asked you when was the best time to have Alanna back with me, you'd say no time would be the best time, wouldn't you? Yes, God, you're right. God says, I know. That's why I didn't ask you. And in that moment,
that's deep.
Some people would take that as, oh, wow, that's harsh. But in that moment, I took it as soothing.
Yeah.
Because all ways are not his ways. I understand not his understanding. There's mysteries of this world that I'll never know. But I know we're in a fallen world and things happen.
Right. Yes.
And, you go through all the spiritual stuff. Is she in a better place? The best place for her is with me because I'm selfish. I want her here. Right.
Me too.
And all this.
Me too.
God, the flower in his garden, all this mumbo jumbo stuff that people say that's pseudo spiritual, don't fly. But it was powerful for me to be able to release my perceived control and let this be what it's going to be and learn how to be the best person I could be on the healing journey, learning how to carry it. Because nothing I can do was going to change it.
Right. Yeah.
And so me just releasing it and saying, help me be better in the journey. Because I know the other stuff I can't do nothing about anyway. Because it's a perception that little white line on the road is protecting us.
Right. Yeah.
But we're in control of something because we stay on the right-hand side of the road. We don't control none of that, but you got to, but the power to release that is so freeing. And then I go to you got to invest in your healing. You got to put time in. Sometimes you got to put money in. You got to put effort in, because I tell folks, you can't build enough birdhouses. You can't fix enough cars. You can't play enough golf not to grieve. Grieve gonna happen. So it's best you lean in.
I love talking to you.
Yeah, and let grief do what it's doing. Grief
Yeah.
naturally takes you towards healing. Naturally. The purest form of grief will naturally take you towards healing.
Yeah. But the problem is with healing that people don't understand. Healing hurts.
Yes.
Healing is revealing, right? And that's something I learned too along the way. Like it tore me open and said, look, and everything was out in the open,
Right.
right? And I could no longer hide from it. And I was telling someone, I was telling someone just recently, and I was putting it together because I love what you just said there. It was throughout that journey of the grief healing, it was as if I was in a fight that I never started, that I didn't even know that I was in. I'm fighting a fight. Either I'm going to survive or it's going to kill me.
Right.
Right. And someone said this a long time ago. They said this sort of grief kills people. I did not understand that about how deep it was until I was sitting there and I realized that throughout the journey, I had just planned out my suicide. I figured out how to move people around my life to where I can have an opening. I knew when people would call me, so I knew not to answer the phone. Then I would call them on days where I wanted to talk to them, which eventually over 2.5 months, literally 2.5 months, I had a weekend open and no one would bother me. So I did that for a couple of weeks, or actually I did it for probably about 3 weeks. And I realized no one was calling me on those weekends. I said, okay. And next thing you know, I was in the middle of the desert. And I realized what had happened. I was so aggressive in my thinking that I thought to myself, it's better if I hurt myself than to go out here and hurt other people. Because like you said, how dare you ride around with your music on, singing, while my world has fallen apart? How dare you?
Right.
Do you not know what just happened? The world needs to stop. And then I realized it wasn't like that. The world don't stop. And then just like you, God told me, I was talking with him. I said, man, it's not supposed to be this way. This is not supposed to be this way. He said, hold on. Then how is it supposed to be? Well, this is not the natural order of things. My dad, my brother, my son, they're all gone. Now I'm here and I can't have any more kids. Okay. Now let me ask you a question. Where does it say that you're exempt from any of this? Did you not know the story of Job? Did you not hear all the other stories of people who've gone through things that you're going through right now? Would you think this is new?
Right.
You need to go back and look at the commonality that they had in there. And it dawned on me, the one commonality that they had in there, that in their lowest moments, God was the one that they reached out to. And in their darkest moments is where God was able to connect with them. Because you no longer have the distractions.
You making me think of something early on, because the boys are living with us and they were a toddler and a 6-year-old. He might have been 3 by then, the littlest one. And I'm packing up to take him to daycare. It's dark and misty, raining outside. And I woke up, just grief was riding my back. I mean, heavy. But I'm tasked with taking him to daycare. So he being a toddler. So I'm frustrated. I get him strapped into the back seat and he says, Pawpaw, it's sunny. I said, no, man. I said, it's overcast. It's raining. Pawpaw, it's sunny. I said, it's overcast. That's like, he a 3-year-old. He don't get it. Sun. And
right.
He said, Pawpaw, the sun is there. And he points up over my shoulder. I turn and look over my shoulder, and all I see is a dark sky. And by the time I close his door and walk around and get in my door, I'm bawling, crying.
Mm.
And I realized that he just ministered to me.
Yep. Isn't that amazing?
And no matter how dark and rainy it is, like it is actually today, that sun, S-U-N, hadn't moved.
No.
That sun is in the exact same spot every day.
Exactly.
So if the S-U-N is up there and we can't see it because of the clouds, the S-O-N is always there.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can't see him because of the clouds of grief. But he's never moved.
No.
We just have to realize he's there. And sometimes the clouds are so thick, we can't see him or feel him. But it gets to a point where you just scream out into the night. But he's always been there.
Yeah.
And that's the powerful thing about it is that, and I tell people that are believers, just because I know how the story ends does not mean I don't get to cry at the sad parts.
Man, Steve,
right?
You took the words right out of my head, man. I was just thinking about that.
Because I know we get victory in the end.
But it doesn't mean that we don't get to cry at the sad parts, man.
And Job, you talk about Job, man. I'm at an intimate level with Job. I mean, I was studying that in seminary. I was literally memorizing chapters of Job to be able to recite them verbatim weeks before my granddaughter died.
Right.
It was like God was preparing me for that. And I realized studying Job at an educational level or whatever else, that Job is not even about what a lot of preachers preach it about, right?
Right.
Job went through this, so he got double for his trouble. That ain't what Job's about.
No, not at all.
Job's about, because Job is about going through, and all that did for Job is prepare him for the next potential going through. Because even though Job had more kids, he didn't replace any kids. None of his kids were resurrected.
No.
So Job still had the proverbial empty seats at the dinner table. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have more kids. You're not replacing any kids. So that empty chair is still at your dinner table. Every time we eat dinner at my house and the four of us sit there, there's an empty chair there.
Yeah.
Because every time before my granddaughter passed away, whenever the two boys were there, she was there. So now every soccer game, every basketball game, every football game, every flag football game, every church service, every time we go to the park, every time we go out to dinner, there's an empty seat there.
Yeah.
But I'm thankful that I recognize that God knows I have an empty seat, and I'm not trying to fill that seat with somebody else. Because like you were saying earlier, right, about the healing, early on in my grief, and I feel so bad because I believe now I was teaching people the wrong thing. I would always say, forever healing, ing, never healed, ed, on this side of eternity. But God reveals something to me. The reason I always stayed in my healing, ing state, is because I never let God have access to the spot that needed healing.
Yeah.
Because he's not going to force himself on us. It's just like salvation. Excuse me. And so once God made Alanna, God knows the hole, the gaping wound I have, because Alanna's not here physically. So he knows exactly the circumference, the shape, the depth, the jagged edges, the rounded edges, the void. He knows the exact measurements of it. But I have to give him access on it to let him feel it.
Exactly.
Now, I think I mentioned this to you the other day when we was talking when we first met.
Yeah.
If I unbutton my shirt right now, you'll see scars because I've had a surgery or two. But when I go for my man's checkup every year, or I go for my regular checkups just to the doctor will say, man, you're healed. But those scars are evidence of work being done.
Yeah.
That's our grief, right? So being healed does not mean forgetting. And we're going to have scars in the process because it's evidence of work being done on it.
Yes.
But I can be classified as healed. I still mourn my granddaughter. I still cry for her. I still can't sleep some nights. 7 years in, and I don't even keep a timetable no more. It's like it's going to be whatever the journey allows it to be.
Yes.
So I'm not worried about, oh, it's been 7 years. Stop thinking like that. But as work is getting done to heal those voids, and it's like, man, May is coming around. You know, she didn't even get her pre-K graduation. You know, so now every year in May, that's a celebration we never got to have with her. Every school year, September 1st is right around the corner. And so all these things remind me of her. Little cuts, little scars that are healing. But I'm healing. And I don't let God not breathe on that. Thank you so much, Margaret, just for being here. I want to mention you that.
I see her over there, man. Hopefully, Margaret, hopefully you're enjoying this conversation, man. I know I am. Me and Bradley, we talked before, man, and this is what it's like when men get together and we can actually talk about what's going on. Like, we totally zoned out, and this is what we do, right? Back and forth. And it's amazing when this is what it's supposed to be like when it comes down to men talking to each other and being vulnerable with each other and, you know, being honest with each other, right? But also, you know, hopefully it's something that you can learn from us as well, and how and getting the idea of how to support the men in your family when they're going through something, you know, opening up the doors for us to be comfortable to talk and things like that, because this right here, and this is just because Bradley and I, we do work in grief, and we've done the work, and so it's an amazing feeling. It truly is an amazing feeling. And for anyone else out there just listening, you know, or is going to be listening to it later as well, you know, this is what it's like. This is what it feels like. This feels good when men can talk, right? So
yeah. Well, and the thing about it, I mean, like, but I know in the grander scheme of things, or male-female relations, whatever you want to call it, men, we bond shoulder to shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're kind of virtually shoulder to shoulder right now, right? Give us something to do, and then the talking kind of happens. Yeah. Women bond knee to knee. They're communal. You know. Now, I got some brothers I'm willing to go knee to knee with, but in a general setting, I'm not going knee to knee with a bunch of dudes.
No.
So don't let this broadcast fool you either.
It's not like that all the time. Yeah. You know, it's definitely not like that all the time.
But give men something to do. So if you put a bunch of grieving men together and it's a golf tournament.
Exactly.
And so we're out playing golf, we're doing something, and then it's like, yeah, man, you know, I heard about your son passing away. That's how that conversation happens.
Exactly.
If you put us in a room and say, talk about your grief, nah.
It's not going to happen.
Now at grief conferences, at men that are further on the journey and they're tuned for that, yeah. I'm talking generalities though. Right. You know, you put it, yeah.
it's hard to open up the door to be around
Right.
people that haven't experienced or walked that same path as
Right.
you. So, and that's the reason I love doing support groups with men. And this has always reigned true. When you put men in the same room with the commonality, we talk. Because most women that I've talked to, they go, my man don't talk. My man don't talk. Oh, or you get a man by himself, or if he's around other people, oh man, I don't do that. I don't do that. I say, hey, just come and just be around this right here. Come and feel this. They come into that group, they sit there for a minute. Next thing you know, we're gabbing. We're talking back and forth. And you know, the crazy part about it is that no one's being judged.
Right. They need a safe space.
Right. When we're in a safe space and things like that. So safe space, the same things that women want to experience, men want to experience as well.
But I'll say this though, because I tend to tell a lot of women this, a lot of spouses this, a lot of girlfriends this, nieces, aunts, whatever. Mm-hmm. When it comes to the grieving man, we're gonna grieve within our personality.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Now, with a new filter on it, that's probably knocked it back a few steps.
Right.
So if he was an always outgoing, wild, boisterous kind of dude, when grief happens, he's going to grieve within his personality, but it's going to be a few steps backwards from that.
Right.
I'm mostly a quiet guy, unless I know you. I go to a party full of people, but I'm going to be in a corner talking to one dude sitting at a table. Mm-hmm. I'm not like, you know, the social butterfly type.
Yeah. I'm not out there like that.
So when grief happened for me, 2 steps back from that is not saying stuff for weeks.
Right.
Right. But I'm grieving within my personality. You can't expect that quiet dude to all of a sudden become, oh, let me go to a counselor with you, babe. Let me talkity talk and get my feelings out. That ain't the man you fell in love with. That ain't the man that he was before grief. You can't expect that after it. But what helped me, frankly, was my wife at some level. When she told me, she's like, I can't heal without knowing you're trying to heal. Mm-hmm. So when you're walking around here, you're not talking, you're not emoting, you're not speaking. Some of my healing is tied up in you. Mm-hmm. So unless I know you're trying to heal, I can't. And that shook me and brought me out of some of that 2 or 3 steps backwards from who I was, right?
Right.
So I gave a little more. I emoted in front of her and the boys, because now I'm raising boys and they need to see the full spectrum of manhood, not just the angry stuff.
Right.
They need to not boo-hoo cry, slobbing at the mouth, falling out in the closet, but I can cry in front of them, right? And let them know that tears are okay. It's part of the emotional package. And you're missing somebody. They don't have the person in their life that's supposed to be with them more of their life than anybody else. Now think about that. They were 6, she was 4 and 2.
Yes.
Your siblings are with you longer than anybody else. Anybody else. Longer than your parents, longer than your spouse, your siblings. And now that person that's supposed to be with them probably 80% of their life, 85% of their life, which nobody else will be. I'm on my way out of here, you know?
Yeah.
It's gone. Now think of that gap. And I'm so tied up in me. Woe is me. My grief is the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And you got a 6-year-old that doesn't have somebody that should be there when they become grandparents and great-grandparents and sharing nieces and nephews with.
Right.
Right. And so we have to put everything in perspective. My grief is my grief. I'm not going to minimize it, but I'm not going to use it as a weapon in my life's journey either. Right. Look at me. I'm the grieving grandpa. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
because I'm built for more than that. And I'm using her legacy to propel me forward to help other people. Because every day somebody else is jumping on this trail, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Either by loss, by death, which is what I really lean into, but other losses too. But every day somebody's getting on this trail behind me. And how dare I not lean back, not look back and say, hey, man, it's going to be a pothole over there. Because you lost a son.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you see them other little boys playing flag football and stuff, you're going to say, man, that could have been my boy.
Exactly.
You know, when it's, you know, reward season and your kid was a little brainiac, man, that could have been my, you know. So I'm gonna let you know them potholes. I'm gonna let you know them time bombs. I'm gonna let you know them mines. Because somebody up in front of me on the trail told me about some things. Right. And it's the journey that nobody wants to be on. But at some point in all of our lives, we either gonna be on it or somebody's gonna be on it because of us. That's just the truth.
And man, that is truly amazing. You know, and with that being said, man, I think that's a great way to wrap up this segment. And brother, thank you. Thank you for being on and having this conversation and sharing your story and your journey. And you guys are going to see so much more of him. We got a whole lot more that we can bring to the table and things like that. And if you guys like these conversations and things like that, you like what we bringing to you, do me a favor, go over to the YouTube channel, subscribe to it, hit that bell notification, leave us a comment, and share it with somebody that you think that can benefit from these conversations. As always, brother, again, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for the story. And for those who tuned in, thank you for allowing us to keep bringing these stories to you. And with that being said, we love you. Thank you. And until next time, you guys be safe.
Thank you.